You will be able to just what you are seeing right now. You are seeing the panelists only. So that's what it'll it'll work in that way only. Only the panelists will be seen.
Got it. So we won't be able to see any of the participants or whatever. Okay.
No.
But they can see us, hopefully.
Yes. They can right now see and hear you.
Oh wow! Already.
Thank you for the heads up.
Yeah, thanks for the heads up.
Right. They are here to see their childhood heroes, right? So. Hi, Vikram.
Hi, Divyendu.
We'll get started in a couple of minutes, if that's okay. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure.
And India is bowling, which is good.
Okay.
You know? So at least we don't miss the batting.
Fantastic.
For whatever it's going to be.
Right.
It actually reminds me of the first T20 World Cup, right? When that happened, it was in 2007, I think in South Africa. And when that finals was played out, that got screened on one of the ISB lawns, okay? And it was...
Get started, I think. So, good evening, everyone, and good morning to Vivek. US time now, morning, I guess. Thanks for tuning in this evening, everyone, and hope you and your loved ones are doing well. As you are aware, today we bring you from ISB insights into the consulting industry, and who better to take us through that journey than partners and senior partners at McKinsey itself. So we have with us Vikram Kapoor, senior partner at McKinsey, joining us from Gurugram. Sudeep Topal, partner at McKinsey, joining us from Mumbai. Vineet Rajadhyaksha, partner at McKinsey, joining us from Dubai. And Vivek Arora, partner at McKinsey, joining us from Boston. So you will get the global flavor of McKinsey from different parts of the world. As for me, I am Divyendu Bose, Senior Director, Admissions and Financial Aid and Office of Alumni Engagement at ISB. What links us all together is that we are all proud ISB alums. So more on that later. But without further ado, let me just directly jump into today's discussions with our elite guests. So we'll get started with you, Vikram. So, and then we will move around the table. We would like to hear from you. What's been your journey, pre-ISB, during ISB, post-ISB, as you made your way through the consulting sector, and today you are a senior partner there. So for many ISBians, even today, when they decide to join to ISB, consulting and McKinsey within consulting is that space where they aspire to go. So would love to hear from you, since you have been there and done that.
Sure, thank you, Divyendu. Maybe I can describe in a couple of minutes my journey, and then of course we should answer the questions that emerge during the course of the session, right? So look, I mean, I'm a Delhi boy. I grew up, did my schooling in Delhi, and then went to IIT Delhi, did my chemical engineering there. I think passed out in the year 2000. Divyendu told me that most of the audience today are people who are in the 20-22 year range, right? So probably I passed out from IIT from when most of you were probably just born, right? So that's that. Post my graduation, I went and worked with Unilever, Hindustan Lever Limited, as it was called in those days, HUL nowadays. And I spent about first 1.5 years within Unilever doing, management training, as they call it, business leadership trainees, where you end up doing a lot of different stints, 2 to 3 months each, over a course of 18 months, across technical, sales and marketing, R&D, etc., etc. And then I got posted in a lovely place called Chiplun, which is in Maharashtra, midway between Bombay and Goa. lovely weather, where I was running a soaps and detergents factory for about 3 years or so, right? And it was a wonderful experience there. It was very relaxing, calm life. As a young 21, 22 years old, you're running a factory. It was about, if I remember right, about 1,000 people, large factory. Uh, and then, I think over the next 2-3 years, as I went through the HUL stint, there was this urge to do something different, right? Because in a factory setup, after spending 2.5 years there, you start to get a little bit bored. And those days, ISB was a relatively young institute. In 2004, when I applied into ISB and got into ISB, did my ISB in 2004, 2005, it was probably, we were the fourth batch. And I had some of my colleagues from Unilever who had gone to ISB earlier, and I had heard fabulous feedback. So I applied and I went there. I spent one wonderful year at ISB and got recruited by McKinsey Company. And I have been with McKinsey ever since. So this is sort of my 16th year in McKinsey Company. Within McKinsey, I've had, while I've been based in Delhi, but I have worked across the globe. I would have done probably in the last 15, 16 years, maybe 80 different assignments across industries, across geographies, across topics. Largely, currently I run what we call as the travel logistics infrastructure practice of McKinsey in India. I also do a lot of my work in sort of the other sectors like steel, cement, basic materials, global energy material type of sectors, right? So that's been a little bit of my journey within McKinsey. Other 2-3 things as part of this particular journey, which I wanted to call out, and this a little bit also gives a bit of a flavor around what consulting entails, right? Since the session is focused around that. One is, you end up, as I mentioned earlier, doing a lot of variety, right? So, I started with in food space. My first project was there. Then I worked for a local administration for a long time. Then I worked for an infrastructure company. Then I worked for a telecom company. And I mean, pretty much, I think the dimension of industries changes very fast. And the thumb rule is that every 1 year spent in a consulting world is equivalent to about 4 years of learning anywhere else, right? Because you just are exposed to so much variety. So that's one thing I wanted to call out about my experience in the consulting world, which was great. Second is the people that you interact with. I think while I had an engineering background, but the kind of people that nowadays are part of the consulting circuit belong to pretty much all fields in life, right? So we have people join in from armed forces, we have people join in from finance background, we have people join in from a medical background, we have people join in from legal backgrounds, right? So I think it's gone are the days where you sort of learn from very, very different perspectives. I think that's the second piece. And third, I think if you end up joining a top tier consulting firm, I think world is your oyster, right? So I think you pretty much work globally, right? So, I mean, some of my colleagues around the call started in India and now are across different parts of the world. But even when you are in India, you work in various geographies, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Japan, Australia, US, UK. I mean, I would have probably worked in about 25 countries, right? So I think that's been a little bit about my journey, Dipendu. You're on mute. If you're speaking.
Thanks, Vikram. That was very insightful. So diversity, that is also the favor of an ISB class, right? People coming from engineering backgrounds, from RB backgrounds, from arts backgrounds. So all of that bringing in different perspectives to the classroom. So, okay.
Absolutely.
So we will move on to Sudipto. And here I'm going by the seniority, okay, of the class. So Vikram is from the PGP class of 05. I hope you don't mind that, because that is also a reflective of our ages, possibly.
No, absolutely. You run it the way you want to. We are fine. Absolutely.
Sure. Okay, Sudipto.
Yeah, Divendra, thanks for that, and good evening, everybody. So I'm a Bengali, born and brought up outside Calcutta. Okay, and Divendra, I don't know, we didn't get to check what was your narrative, but I'm the veritable Prabashi Bengali.
Okay.
So I schooled in Hyderabad, and then did my chemical engineering from IIT Bombay, right? Passed out in '99. And I must say that was the time when I was, I was really passionate about what I had studied, okay? And I really wanted to put that into practice. So much to my urging of my parents who wanted me to go and do an MBA then and there, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I really need to put this to practice, okay? So like Vikram, Hindustan Lever came around to campus, okay, right? And I joined them. Did the 1.5 years of training, right? Very similar to what Vikram just articulated, right? And then I started, and then I spent about 6 years with them overall. 2 broad stints. The first one was in brand innovation. So I used to lead their innovation for Unilever's skincare business, right? Over the time that I spent there, I actually worked through the entire spectrum of brands. I started bottom of the pyramid. I remember my first stint was I was handed over Lifebuoy. That was a time that the whole brand was being reinvented. And then after kind of running the transformation on Lifebuoy, then I moved from Lifebuoy to Lux, and then from Lux to Dove, and then that was the whole journey out there. Good stint, okay. I think I loved it. It was all about getting new products, understanding consumer insights, working with really all the the good things that Unilever had to offer. I then moved into a manufacturing stint, right? So I used to run a factory which was in the middle of nowhere in UP, right? It was a place called Orai. What you would have heard of Orai is largely from it's a place in Bundelkhand, features a lot in the places around. It's notorious for the dacoits out there, but interestingly, you got a bunch of manufacturing units out there, right? So I spent 1.5 years there running, the largest soap factory for Unilever then. A very different experience, okay? Right, about 500 odd people, fully automated plant. Very different experience. I learned a lot, okay? Right. But by then I had almost completed about 6 odd years in Unilever. And, and there was, I think, while it was a great place, right, and a fantastic experience, there was this thing to try and do something different, right, beyond what I would say the very predictable space of FMCG was pointing towards, right. And that was the time when I guess I took up what parents had been telling me all this while and say, listen, why don't you then go and, finish, get your MBA done. And that had been on the cards. And, to be fair, it was, the plan originally was to go to a school in the US. Okay. And I had done all the groundwork, right, written all the stuff out there, and everything was lined up. And then I found that a couple of my colleagues from Unilever, Vikram included, were heading towards ISB. Okay. And, I think what struck me when I kind of heard from them and some of the others is that, this brought the best of the global faculty, right? And it brought it at my doorstep, right? It brought it at Hyderabad, and my parents are from Hyderabad. And I just said that, frankly, if I were to go to an international school, it's really for the exposure, right? For the experience. And if that's happening out here, then why not, right? So with all of that, I joined ISB, spent about a year there. Vineet and I were batchmates. Okay. So, and I think that post ISB, I had the offer of getting back to Unilever, but then, the urge of trying and doing something beyond FMCG got me onto McKinsey, right? And again, interestingly, I think it was I would say the idea of joining McKinsey initially was maybe for about a couple of years, right? This gives a nice way of trying different things, getting a breadth of industry exposure, and then maybe I kind of get back to industry. But it's been a good journey. It's been a good experience, and I think it's now 12th year counting that I'm here. In McKinsey, the first few years, I mean, true to what I wanted to do, I explored all sectors other than consumer, I would say, right? I mean, I did oil and gas, I did insurance, I did, pharma, I did everything that was there to do. And then I started gravitating to what I was really interested in, which is sales and marketing and growth. So I lead our sales and marketing practice in India, and do most of my work in growth transformations across a broad spectrum of what you would call as industrial companies, right? Which is automotive, building materials, engineering goods, capital goods, logistics, right? That's really the space that that I work across, and this is mostly across, I would say, emerging markets, right? So I've had the opportunity of driving this across India, Southeast Asia, various parts of Africa, parts of Europe, right? And it's been a great journey. I'll kind of pause here, Divyendu, hand it back to you.
Sure, Sudipto. My journey has been, you just asked, it's been exactly the opposite. Like I've been born and brought up in Calcutta, so much so that went to South Point, the academic hub at that time, and then to JU to do my engineering. So and then later on, just like you had aspirations to do go abroad for MBA, but then ISB came up and ended up going to ISB. So again, that was the similarity over there. But before I move on to Vinit and Vivek, the one question that has already come across Vikram and Sudipto, if you could, Vikram briefly touched upon it, but would love to hear both of your views on that. Both of you introduced yourselves that, you went to IIT, you worked at Unilever, you ended up being at McKenzie. Is it a prerequisite to go to IIT for joining McKenzie?
No, absolutely not, right? I mean, I think it's just a matter of coincidence, and maybe that's the death that we had two of us, and we also had two of us Unilever kind of talking about it. If you look at McKinsey overall, right? I think I would say as on date, at least a third, 30 to 40% of people who join us, I would say, are non-engineers, right? In the India office, right? These come from a broad spectrum of backgrounds. You have people from liberal arts. You have people from economics. You have people who graduate in the pure sciences. You've got people who come in from the armed forces backgrounds. You have people who come in from who are doctors, right? Who've been practicing doctors for a period of time. You have people who are from government, including IAS and civil services, right, to join us. So there's a broad spectrum. And in fact, what McKinsey loves and encourages is diversity, because that's what really brings about the strength and distinctiveness of what we have to bring to our clients.
Yeah. So just one more thing to add. Look, in that era, 2005, 6, 7, when most of us graduated, probably consulting still was an evolving field, right? Therefore, you see a certain profile of people. I picked up a question also about all of us being from IIT. Therefore, is it even a prerequisite to get into ISB, right? So I mean, I can talk on two fronts, right? One is that in ISB, at least in my batch itself, there were, I would say, engineers were 50-60%. They were 30-40% non-engineers. I'm talking about my batch in ISB. And then as we recruit today from various campuses as McKinsey and Company, and I have the privilege of leading that, I led our business analyst recruitment program in India office of McKinsey for 3-4 years. And I am very deeply involved in the ISB recruitment process for MBAs. So two things have changed. One, gender diversity, right? This year, for example, we have picked up 50% women, right? So we made about 30 offers in ISB. ISB is our largest intake campus across all IIMs, all Delhi University, Mumbai University colleges, NLS, etc., etc. ISB stands to be the largest campus. 50% of the intake is women, and like Sudipto said, 40 to 45% of people have non-engineering background, right? You can imagine, I mean, armed forces, medical, legal, CAs, whatever, right? I think.
Fantastic insights there, Vikram and Sudipto. Thanks for that. In fact, Vikram, you are so right. Even in our current ISB PGP class, we consciously ensure that we have enough diversity. So our current class is 60%, 59 to 60% male, and balance female, so 40 to 41%. At the same time, we have around 60% of possibly engineers, but more than 40% would be from non-engineering backgrounds. So we are all pretty much on the same page there. Now, moving on to Vineet. So we
I'll just also call out one
Sure.
other dimension of diversity that at least in McKinsey Company we take very seriously. That's the
Sure.
LGBTQ dimension of diversity. And I mean,
Sure.
we are over the last many years now trying to ensure that the culture in our place is inclusive on the LGBTQ community as well. I think we celebrate diversity on multiple dimensions. I just want to call that out as well.
Sure. Thanks, Vikram. So Vineet, we heard from your classmate. So now looking forward to hear from you.
Sure. Sure. So, good evening, everyone, and sort of lovely to sort of reminisce on old memories, and lovely to see friends around this room. And thank you for having us. Let me start by saying that I did not go to an IIT. So let me start by sort of busting some of the myths that some of you might have. Neither did I work in an FMCG company, which I think Vivek is also going to say. So let me tell you that that's not the only way or the only journey. And I might be the exception that proves the rule. So I was born in Mumbai. For all of you, obviously, way long ago. And always had the engineering bent of mine. So where I think I am certainly like the others is I am indeed an engineer, and sort of it was never a doubt in my mind that would be the sort of core qualification that I would pursue. And I ended up getting into the College of Engineering in Pune, which is a well-established college, 150 years old, and sort of did mechanical engineering there. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think, being from a family of engineers, engineering was a natural choice for me. No shame in saying that at that time I had absolutely no clue about consulting, what it was, what type of skill set did one require to get into consulting, and so on. And so, to be fair, completely, blissfully ignorant, if you will, to some of those opportunities. And I was always sort of pursuing the path of being, in the technology space, right, or an engineering space more broadly. And I was almost 100% sure that I would do an MS, and applied accordingly, got into UT Austin. And if it wouldn't be for the immigration policies of the US at the time, and my visa got rejected 2 times, I actually would have been probably not part of this conversation. So I think I must thank the immigration officer who denied me a visa at the time, because what that meant is, after my sort of BE in mechanical engineering, I decided to continue to put that in practice, much like Sudipto sort of said, because I always got, I would say, a lot of energy from seeing what I learned sort of executed. And I joined Larsen & Toubro in the heavy engineering division. Worked in Powai, did some amazing projects, was part of some teams put together to manufacture equipment that was only being manufactured in India at the time, right? So now, of course, we see India sort of leading on the Make in India, and so on. I've had the fortune of being involved in special projects that actually were very much like that. So it's German technology, but fully manufactured in India. So I actually enjoyed that experience a lot. I would say that a lot of the grounding and the core skill sets of analytical sort of pattern recognition came out of that experience, I would say. But also, more importantly, the ability to deal with people. Most of my time was spent on the shop floor working with workers and laborers who you had to convince to get a 80 mm sheet rolled into a cylinder, right? So this was, it tested me in different dimensions, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But beyond the point, sort of the exposure grew, and I think through conversation with multiple friends and family, I think decided that it was the time to sort of pursue an MBA. And again, ISB was, while I did join 4 years after Vikram did, it was still relatively nascent, right? I mean, I think that what ISB is today was a dream at the time, right? There was nowhere close to what it has and the global standing it has. It was still a new school, and I thought that is what excited me to it, right? I wanted to be part of an organization and a network that was growing. And I joined in 2007. And, I remember, being very much with Sudipto in the same batch and the T20 final that we were talking about, right, which was screened at the time. So ISB was a phenomenal year. I think I met my wife there. So like I said, many of these things happen for a reason. And I think ISB was an absolutely amazing experience. But interestingly, again, within ISB, the consulting bug never bit me. I was actually still an arm's length from consulting. I did apply, I wouldn't lie, but I actually didn't even get a shortlist from McKinsey. So, just to share some of the strange journeys where we all find ourselves in the same room. But I did not get a shortlist from McKinsey in campus. And I ended up sort of continuing to do, engineering project work. So I joined Reliance Power and was part of the team that was building the Krishnapatnam 4,000 megawatt power plant, coal-based, right? So again, completely different sector, completely different industry. But I spent about 2 years in Reliance Power, and I would say, again, enjoyed that a lot, right? So I would just love to underscore the importance of real world experience, right? There's no question that whenever I have a conversation, even today with a client, right, I'm able to speak very credibly about the power sector. And I can easily go back and talk about, these are the 5-6 big packages in a power plant, which is knowledge you acquire. You can only acquire by doing that job. So I think all the I would say the steps that you take and the experiences that you get are all accretive, right? And as a consultant, everything is valuable. I mean, there's no question in my mind that both the experience in Larsen & Toubro and Reliance Power are incredibly helpful. And then I think, I spoke about my wife. My wife actually, clearly smarter than me. Vivek knows her very well. She got straight into McKinsey from campus, right? So I got the consulting view from a little bit on the outside, right? And I could see the kind of work she was doing, and I could see the intensity of the work, but I could see the satisfaction that it gave her. And 2-3 years as part of Reliance Power, I started to hit a glass ceiling. I got tired of the culture a little bit. I didn't want to call everybody sir. And then I thought it's now or never. And Neha was my wife. As I said, I was in the power sector, and I was one of the experts that a McKinsey team called to get some information and input on the power sector in India and sort of some specific questions that they had. And I thought I gave answers that everybody in the power sector knew, but for them it was incredibly insightful. And her project manager at the time said, why don't you apply? And I thought this might be an interesting opportunity to pursue. I kind of thought I knew what consulting was, having been married to a consultant. And then I put my hat in the ring and got selected and hired. And joined the Mumbai office 11 years ago. Like everybody else who's spoken before, tried to get as much exposure to different industry sectors as possible, and it was truly, truly exciting. Moved to the Middle East, and I think mobility, and Vivek will talk about it as well, I'm sure. But as consulting in general is truly a global profession. I think different firms have different ways of treating it, but certainly, within McKinsey, it is truly one firm. And I got the opportunity to move to the Middle East about 6 years ago. So I've spent more time in the Middle East than in India, I now realize. And I spent, again, time in Doha, I spent time in Dubai, and it's been incredibly fulfilling. I lead our infrastructure and cities practice here in the Middle East. Spent, before COVID, most of my time in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, continuing to sort of work in the same space. So that's a little bit my journey. I would say quite different from the two you've heard before, but hopefully that also underscores the point.
Thanks, Vinit. That was quite an incredible story. It's like Destiny's Child. Visa officer rejects you from going to the US. You land at ISB. You meet your wife, and then you work on a project which finally takes you to McKenzie. So what a run there.
Yeah. I also had my first alcoholic drink in ISB, and that's so. There's many firsts that happened there. Let me just stop there.
Fantastic. So Vivek, you have to now come up with something really innovative.
Yeah, it's very tough. I was going to say that, after three such narratives, it's hard to match. So I think I'll at least keep the chronological events in my life quite brief. From Delhi, I went to IIT Kanpur, did engineering. From there, I joined ITC in the tobacco division, worked there. From there, went to ISB and then McKinsey, joined an India office, had a couple of international stints, and now I'm here, like permanently based here in Boston. So I mean, that's been the, that's been the journey overall. I think 3 or 4 things which I'll actually call out and speak more about it. I think the first is about, I mean, I was just fortunate to have a chance, to have different opportunities, and the choices I made, I think actually helped me where I am, right? I mean, the first opportunity was, interestingly, right after my engineering, I had a pre-placement offer from ITC where I had done my my 3rd year summers, and I also had an option to actually join McKinsey back then, sort of as a BA. And that's and at that point of time, I actually chose to not go into consulting and go to actually go to industry instead. I mean, that was of course a function of I mean, as you see around some of your local heroes, some of your friends, some of the seniors that you look up to. Actually, one of them being Vineet's wife. So all of them, I mean, all the people who I was close to and looked up to in IIT went to ITC. So actually, I went there. I thought fantastic decision, sort of like to actually look back, because as Vineet was saying, just experiences with real world problems actually gives you a lot of credibility, even as you go into MBA for your own learning. Actually being able to put some of the learnings aside, some of the experiences you've had in the past, and you can really accelerate your learning. So that was one decision. Then I also had I mean, from ITC again, as I was applying for my MBA, I was all set to actually go out and apply for some of the the well-known big MBA colleges here in the US. That was the year of 2008, 2009. That's when we had the huge financial meltdown happened. Lehman crashed and everything happened. I actually had a bunch of my seniors who I was very close to were actually struggling, at least at that point of time, to actually land good internships and jobs there. And it's of course for people like my background, coming from middle class families, it's also a huge financial burden back then, to actually take in that environment of such high risk. And also on the personal side, I also got married to my long time sort of girlfriend then from high school, now my wife, and we also chose to get married. And we just didn't want to at that point of time go out. So again, some of my favorite seniors and friends went to ISB. I went to ISB, and I thought that actually takes me to the next leg of what I was going to talk about, which is ISB Life. I thought it was, I think, just parking the professional sort of benefits, even personally, I thought it was actually one of the best decisions that we made sort of as a couple. I think we actually got married and almost like spent our first year after marriage at ISB. So ISB was almost like our extended honeymoon for a year. And guys, believe me, for all those who haven't yet been to ISB campus, it is, I can, now having seen all the MBA campuses there, it is, I would say, top 3, top 5 campuses in the world. It's outstanding, right? I mean, of course, on academics and stuff, so that we spoke about, but even as a personal experience and lifestyle, I mean, you actually live on a campus where you have, fantastic new, I'm sorry, my kids are screaming at the back end. They aren't used to me being in a room on a Sunday morning logged in. But yeah, I mean, so you actually have those quads or studios which are, actually managed by a 4-star, 5-star sort of agency. I mean, we used to have experiences where you are having a late evening or a late night party, like somebody, throws up or whatever, you actually call them and say, please help. And, people actually come and, they just, I think the overall, the campus management is so fantastic. So, and even, especially for spouses, I'm not sure how many of you will be married when you get to ISB, but, if you have the opportunity, or if you have spouses have a fantastic time on campus. They have a very vibrant community, and, they actually do a lot of activities, and, it's a great experience for them, but they also add so much to the overall community of students there as well. So I think ISB was of course a fantastic experience for us. I wasn't ever, top 10 in grades or like dean's list or whatever. I wasn't, right? So I saw a few questions that do we need to have like, top grades? And, I mean, clearly the answer is no. But yes, what I've always done, be it in IIT or at MBA, was, to always be, as you say, an all-rounder. in terms of exploring all that the institute had to offer. So in fact, across both institute, played sports, represented both institutes in cricket, basketball, some of the other sports as well, and also embraced all the things which the campus had to offer. So I think for all of those who are heading into MBA, my advice would be to, while you think that, hey, in grades will be the most important thing. Of course, having good grades won't hurt, but don't spoil your MBA MBA experience by I'm sorry, don't spoil your MBA experience by only being focused only on academics and at the expense of some of the other experiences that you will get. So that was a little bit about my ISB journey, and then I'll then talk about my McKinsey journey, and how ISB itself has played a huge role in that, right? So now, first of all, ISB is a fantastic community at McKinsey. When I actually joined in 2011, it was building up, but where it is right now, it is I think far bigger, than I'm Ahmedabad community at McKinsey. We always used to have this healthy competition every year on where do we hire more from. I used to lead our ISB recruiting before I left the India office, and then I think for the last 3 or 4 years we were hiring way more than I'm Ahmedabad, right? So all of us also remained very close. In fact, the contribution that people like Vikram, Vineet, and Sudipto and others who have played in my own journey at McKinsey was fantastic, right? So for me, this the coaching, mentorship, and help which I got from some of my seniors from ISB and otherwise has also contributed a lot in terms of where I am. I saw a bunch of questions around, hey, is consulting about tough lifestyle, long hours, crazy travel? Sure, it's hard work, it's travel, all of that, but then it's all with a fantastic set of people and a fantastic sort of overall support system. You actually travel, and everything is like top notch that you do, and it's I think it's something which I have really personally enjoyed a lot. The last thing I'll speak about is just the global exposure. While ISB was a very, very satisfying and fulfilling experience, I always thought that, hey, just an MBA abroad would have been something different, would have given me a global perspective. But and that's why one of the big things I was inspired by at McKinsey was this opportunity to actually transfer and go out and experience any other geography. So in fact, we had an option to just pick any McKinsey office globally almost and actually go there for a short-term transfer. So I picked up Boston because Harvard was one of the MBA schools I was quite keen on coming. So I thought, I'll just experiment Boston. So I went to Boston, stayed here for around 18 months. We then went back, was always, quite keen to actually be a global leader in my life. So even from India, I had so many opportunities to work with colleagues in the US, in Europe. I spent more of my time in pharmaceutical industry, which is also a very global industry. So that helped me stay connected with my peers outside. And then after I became partner in 2019, we actually thought that for my next learning curve, we'll actually move back to the US. So we came back to Boston, and so I just feel that an ISB as well as McKinsey has given me that experience and that opportunity to become a global leader. To actually work with such diverse folks here. While in India, of course, things are overall things are becoming way more diverse in terms of our colleagues. But of course, if you work globally, all these countries are a bit ahead of India. So for example, at any average team of mine which I would have, for example, just thinking about one team I have, the EM is from Russia, the associate is from Brazil, somebody is from Europe. I have a bunch of Indian folks, right? So it's just such a diverse set of environment. And I must say that ISB is now a very, very well established, global reputed brand. Everybody understands what ISB means and, the overall caliber of some of us who come from ISB. So I'll just pause there now after my long narrative.
That was very insightful, Vivek. I would say you were on the same page. So even going last, you made your impression. So But yeah, you are so right. Like already ISB, if you are following the recent FT rankings, the attendees, like ISB is the only B school from India to be featuring in the Financial Times top 25. So, yeah, so we are ranked 23, and the type of thought leadership that Vivek mentioned about, say, the Harvard MIT ecosystem, that's the same level of thought leadership that we, and the focus on research and innovation that we have here at ISB with so many research centers and institutes of excellence. So now coming back to Vikram and Sudipto, so so the attendees here, they are gearing up for their YLP application, the YLP deadline being on the 28th of this month. So they are now possibly most of them would be thinking that I have choices to apply for other B schools or international or try international. So what would your advice? How should they look about it? And if they, I'm guessing that most of them would be interested in consulting careers. So how should they think about it?
Yeah. No, so look, I think I have 2-3 thoughts which come to my mind, right? Again, keeping in mind that they are still at a very formative stage in their life, and some of the best things in life happen through serendipity rather than planning, right? Because, and as you heard all these 3 or 4 stories, I don't think any one of us planned to be in consulting, right? I think one thing led to another, and you found a certain inspiration and so on. So I have, I think after one piece of advice is, after engineering, some work experience helps, right? Because I think irrespective of whether you want to ultimately go into consulting, or whether you want to do iBanking, or you want to, do a startup, whatever, I think work experience helps. It gives you a little bit of ground check, ground reality. So I would at least encourage everyone to have that. Now, anywhere between 2 to 3 years, 4 years, depending upon what your reality is, right? I think, or what your desire is, I think is good enough work experience to get that flavor. And that can be pretty much any industry, right? So, I mean, there is no particular industry that if you go to, your chances of getting into an MBA or your chances of getting into a consulting post MBA increases significantly. As I said, right, doesn't matter, right? Some work experience helps. Second, I think after that work experience, whether you do an MBA from or you don't do an MBA, I mean, that's also a choice, right? I mean, just in spirit of openness, there are people who don't do an MBA and still do wonderful in life, right? So I think, so as I said, the world is evolving. The world 15 years back, when we all went to ISB or did MBA, right, was very different world, right? And now the world is a very different world, right? So explore your choices, right? I mean, there is no one set path to success. Third point I would make is that, look, the choice between India and the US MBA is contingent upon 2 primary factors. One is cost, right? I mean, I think, yes, ISB is expensive, but going to the US is even more expensive, right? So I think I was told nowadays it costs about, I don't know, 35 lakhs or so, but the US MBA, if you go in for a 2-year MBA, could be somewhere in the ballpark of a 1 crore, right? So I think, so you have to take that into account. Second, you have to ask this question to yourself: where do you want to stay and live and work, right? Some of us, because of family reasons, some of us because of personal preferences, want to be in India, and some of us want to explore things outside, right? So if you do an MBA from India, then most likely you will be working in India, at least for the first stint in your career, 5-7 years. And then you can, of course, within the company that you go in, you can go outside like Vineet did or like Vivek did. And if you are very certain that you want to work outside, right, then you may, and you have the resources to go and study outside, then that's another viable option, right? As I said, I mean, the last thing I would say is that, and this is more true today than it was true 10, 12, 15 years back when we were all there. I think in ISB, I think all the great companies which go to a world-class B school come to ISB, right? I mean, that's the truth, right? I mean, as I said, and I'll borrow Vivek's just, one fact he shared in the earlier, right? I mean, which is that ISB today is probably if you collate the top 3 consulting firms, probably the largest pool of talent that gets hired by consulting firms in Asia, right? I mean, it's by far McKinsey's largest intake comes from ISB, right? So I think in India. So, if you think about iBanking, if you want to go to consulting, if you want to do a startup, whatever, right? FMCG company, I can't think of too many companies who would say, I will not come to ISB, but I would go to a Harvard or a Stanford or a IIM or whatever else, right? So I think the reality is very different. Those are some of the things that one has to keep in mind, Dibyendu, as one thinks about making those career choices. But I just underline the power of serendipity, right? No matter what you plan, I think life will take its own course, right? Give that serendipity a little bit of a chance. It's important. Yeah. I don't know, Sudipto, Vivek, Vineet, you guys want to add anything?
Thanks, Vikram. In fact, last couple of years back, it's Samsung from their head office in Korea. They were considering only sending their top talent only to the top 10 global business schools in terms of getting their MBA degree. But then when we had a conversation with them, since then they have been every year sending students to ISB because they realize that India is a big market, and that is a market nobody can ignore. So in that context also, there is a talent, the global companies, as you said rightly, that ISB is being treated at par with the globally the best schools, and candidates are getting sponsored by top global companies to come to study at ISB. So that's the data that I'm seeing every year. Sudipto, you want to add something in terms of the candidates? They have to, like right now, they have to apply for the YLP program, but then they have to work for 2 years, 20 months before they can, even if they are made an offer, they finally are able to join. So how best they should utilize their time if once they apply, if they are made an offer, so that they can leverage most on the ISB experience, and if they are then looking at consulting, that would play out well for them.
So in fact, I think from what I understand, the way you describe the YLP program, Dibyendu, and the fact that people get a couple of years, okay, post being accepted to actually joining, I think it's it's a great setup, okay, because any work experience coming into MBA, I think is extremely helpful, right? And in fact, one of the questions I was picking up is startup experience helpful, or is it only corporates that are useful, right? So fact is, anything, whether you are running your own startup, okay, as an entrepreneur, whether you are part of a fast growing startup entity, whether you're part of a social impact entity, right? Let's say even an NGO, right? Or you're part of a corporate, right? So whatever that spectrum is, I think that work experience is usually very helpful to have coming into MBA. It gets you grounded into some of the practicalities of the way the world works, right? Not that again it is a must-have, not that again it's a must-have, but it's always helpful, right? And I think what I have seen it help is it kind of makes your participation, makes your learning, right, and makes your overall development on campus that much more richer, right? It also allows you to have a more balanced view, right? That not everything is black and white, but you're okay having shades of gray, right? So I think the fact that you've got the 2 years, any sort of experience that you're able to get will be helpful, right? And in that, any experience which is actually hands-on, where you're getting your hands dirty, rolling up your sleeve, getting stuff done, I think is usually even more helpful to have, right? From a consulting perspective, right? It's not that we look at people only with, I mean, from McKinsey's perspective, if I were to look at it, we look at people from a broad spectrum of backgrounds, right? I mean, people who are straight out of campus, right? Or, people who have substantial experience. So there's no hard and fast rule to that, right? Of course, if you come in with substantial experience, you could join us at a slightly different, tenure, okay? That's obviously there. But I think more importantly, again, it allows you to be far more balanced the way you go about your first few engagements, right? So usually there's a learning curve, right? Right, and that learning curve the learning curve, I guess, is better off if you come in with some amount of experience. But I wouldn't say that's anything which is hard and fast.
Great, Sudipto. Vineet, now coming to you. So there was an interesting question. What is the best thing about working at McKinsey? So that the fundamental question there, that all of you have been long timers at McKinsey. So what makes you hold on to your positions there?
It's a great question. And again, for me, the answer is, it's not that we don't think it's so. It's very simple. I learn something new every day. Mm-hmm. I think if I were to just sort of encapsulate the whole McKinsey proposition for me, I learn something new every day. For example, today I learned much more about the YLP in ISB than I knew before, right? I mean, it's just the opportunities that the firm provides you. There is zero chance of you getting in a rut. And for me, it's the one single thing that keeps me going, despite all the challenges that I think are on the chat and what Vivek mentioned. And then that is reality. It is a challenging job, but I think McKinsey gives you the opportunity to solve for excitement. And I think it forces you to sort of be in a place where you learn something new every day. So that is what I absolutely, truly love about the firm.
Oh, fantastic response, Vineet, there. So if you like challenges, every day look forward to actually learning something new, McKinsey is the place you want to head to.
I would say so, yeah.
Great, Vineet. So Vivek, you talked about your aspiration for being a global leader. So the way you have structured your journey also, it's pretty much representative of that. Studying at IIT, going to ISB, then to McKinsey, and now a partner there. And I have seen that top global companies end up mostly historically hiring McKinsey top talent as their CEOs or MDs. So is that on the offing? That's something you are looking forward? I'm just projecting the journey forward.
Yeah. No, I think, it's true, Dibyendu. And in fact, all of us who have spent all these years at McKinsey, right? It's not that, we haven't had second thoughts. It's not that we haven't explored opportunities. I think personally, I can say that I've at least been in my 11 years here, I think 3 times when I would have, thought about, exploring something outside, and actually went there, interviewed and all of that, right? So yeah, all the opportunities are there. Opportunities are fantastic. It's really inspiring, to also see our alum network, which is, and actually it's true for both ISB alum network and, I would say for McKinsey alum network as well. Everybody is doing so well, sort of like back in those days when you were traveling, so at airports, in flights and hotels, you would run into quite a few ISB alums or McKinsey alums in this context, right? And everybody is doing really, really well. So yeah, that's something which is of course, quite inspiring, and something which we always think about. But I think the other thing was, just 2 or 3 reflections from those experiences of actually going out there, interviewing, and then coming back, right? First of all, every time, I felt I should look outside, I went, interviewed, I always found that, there were opportunities, right? So it just takes that stress off that, hey, if if like for some reason, like this job doesn't work out, it's not that I won't be able to take care of my family and my kids, right? I mean, the ISB experience, McKinsey experience actually matters a lot. So, I mean, every time you step out, you always have good opportunities, so that was one. Two was, it just that those experiences made me, come back to the firm more sort of, with a stronger conviction, because the more I interviewed, the more I saw outside, I felt, what I got at McKinsey was so much at premium and was so amazing. Things that at least I personally, the things that I look for, I've still not been able to find those things outside, so every time, that those experiences made my conviction to stay here much longer. So that was the other thing. But yeah, I mean, I think all of us aspire to, actually lead businesses and, sort of become CXOs, CEOs in future. Yeah. So I think that's something which is definitely on the cards, and we'll wait for the right opportunity. But I think till that time, I think, I mean, consulting is I think it's a fantastic place to be in. I think, especially for some of the younger colleagues who are on, right, because there are a few who, of course, I mean, these days I meet so many of the youngsters who are just so clear on what they want to achieve in life. And, they have their 2-year, 5-year, 15-year journey mapped out, right? I wasn't like that, right? So I just actually wanted to do well, sort of like, be among the best and continue to learn. And I think for folks like us who are not very clear on life, I think consulting is a fantastic parking spot, right? It's somewhere, I mean, you will always keep on enhancing your skill set, enhancing your generalist skills. And it's hard to imagine any industry that does not welcome sort of MBA graduates with consulting experience in them, right? So it always always opens more doors and actually gives you opportunities to go out. And I think lastly, I mean, the other question that you asked about McKinsey, right? I mean, on why have you all stuck? I think even if McKinsey is the place, or if consulting is what you really want to do, I think top tier consulting, definitely McKinsey. You of course want to be partner. I mean, that's the dream, and the pathway to partner is the fastest and the most exciting in at McKinsey, right? So that's the other thing which I would like to call out. Which has helped me sort of like stay at McKinsey and just enjoy the journey.
Great, thanks, Vivek. So somebody asked how you navigate your journey till the C-suite. So for them, the response is just any of the people you see on the screen. Just see how they have traversed their journey, and you will get to know how you can head to that C-suite. So Vikram, coming back to you, since you have recruited from multiple campuses, so is there within McKinsey also, is there a difference between like somebody coming from ISB and going to the partner level, or somebody coming to another top 10 global school? Is there you see there's been a difference, or the top talent is top talent?
Yeah. No, look, there are many great colleges in India, right? I mean, so I think that's the beauty of the times that we live in now, right? I mean, so I think, but what's unique, at least about the ISB program, and linking it back to the earlier point I mentioned, because work experience is a norm here, right? Therefore, the people who come in already know how the normal business world works, right? Now, I know that IIMs also have now started a 1-year program where they have some of this thing, and that program is also great, by the way, right?
So Vikram, sorry to interrupt you here. This the question that the person had asked more in the context of somebody graduating from a Harvard or a Stanford and actually ending up being a partner. So would that partner at McKinsey be treated differently from a partner from ISBs?
No. So this is not at all. I think we have this famous thing in our firm which says we are one firm, right? So when we become a partner in McKinsey, the partner in McKinsey is the partner in McKinsey, right? That is what allowed Vivek, who became partner in India, to seamlessly transfer to Boston, and Vineet made partner in Dubai while he was hired in India and was sort of, quote unquote, if I may say, grew up in India, right? So I think our offices feel the same, our presentations feel the same. If you look at it, right, the same blue color, the same brownish teak wood, in all our offices around the world. Absolutely not. So Harvard is at par with ISB as far as McKinsey and Company is concerned.
And maybe Divyendra, if I can just add to what Vikram said, right? It's not just about which college have you done your MBA from, right? Whether it's ISB, IIMs, or the Harvard, right? A large portion of our partners may not have an MBA, right? They're people who join us as business analysts and then can have gone straight through. So it's not a must that you have an MBA, and they are partners as well. So fact is, which college you are from, whether you have an MBA or not, is no distinction on how you are, whether you get to being a partner and how are you going to do as a partner.
Sure. So another question. Now that last year we got hit by COVID, and we are all talking about the new normal, the entire way we are working, the entire way we are looking at digital transformation, the evolution of industry as well as the consulting space. So can you all share some insights about that space, because our prospects they would be entering in a very different era now that the world has gone through that journey. So 2, 3, 4 years down the line, so how you are seeing the consulting space evolving?
Yeah, maybe I'll make a couple of comments and then my colleagues can pitch in. I think there are 2 or 3 big trends we are seeing, where the world is moving, and I think consulting sort of mimics that, right? So I'm assuming that the profession will also tend into that direction. I think the first trend, which is now, I wouldn't say it's a new trend, it's a trend which has been very strong over the last 3-4 years, is the whole, what we call as the digital and analytics-led business transformation trend, right? I think 4 years back, if we were having this conversation, we would tell you that technology, digital analytics, AI, machine learning was, one other thing that you could do, right? But today, pretty much I would say every work that we do in consulting world has a digital and analytics component to it, right? In fact, it's become core. From something which was on the side, it has become core. Mm-hmm. What that means is, for the profession, is that if 10 years back you would ask me the profile of people who McKinsey would have, there would be there'll be a large proportion of that which will be MBAs, right? But now we have people who are data scientists, data engineers, right? Product managers, all types of disciplines. So I think that is one clear trend that we have seen. Second trend that, we are seeing, and this is still playing out, is the whole topic of climate change, the whole topic of sustainability is finding roots, right? So I think this used to be a little bit of what I would call as party line. 3-4 years back, people used to do lip service to it, but I think now the world has realized that this is for real, and if this is not addressed as part of core business agenda, right, we will be doing a disservice to our future generations, right? Mm-hmm. So I think this is, again, something which is becoming central, right, to this thing. It's not yet there, but I think this is maybe 3 to 4 years down the line, like we're talking about digital and analytics as being core to the work. I think sustainability as a topic will become core, right, to the various business problems and the company's agendas. I think that will be the second thing I would talk about. And I think the third thing, which was probably, I would say, to a large extent always true about McKinsey, but it is becoming even more true, is with the, especially post-COVID, this has got accelerated with the Zoom and all that kind of stuff, bringing the best practitioners from around the world, mm-hmm. right, to any business problem, right? Earlier, you see a sample of that around this call itself, right? Someone from Boston, someone from Dubai, people from India. It's now normal for, in a client meeting, to have people from 5 or 6 distinct geographies, right? And it's almost like you're talking to them face to face. So I think that's also something which was revolutionary, and this thing. And last thing I would say as a trend, I already mentioned that the incoming pool of talent right? That's going in, and this is a trend which was seen even pre-COVID. I think probably post-COVID, I would imagine that should remain the same. Is diversity of talent that consulting companies are bringing into the consulting world, right? We already talked about that earlier, so I'll not repeat that. But those are 3 or 4 things which I would call out.
Maybe if I could just add to that, Divyendu, I think in addition to what Vikram mentioned, there is the nature of topics, right? That itself that companies are looking to engage on. I think in the spirit of digital being literally a core part of most of the work that that we are doing. There are certain sets of topics which earlier companies were quite hesitant to engage, right? I think people are becoming far more open, right? So whether it's omni-channel, whether it's direct to consumer, right? Whether it is pivoting from just selling products to selling solutions and services, right? I think companies are far more open to now engage and explore a broader set of business opportunities than what they were pre-COVID. They just realized that these disruptions, many of them which have been playing out for a few years, are far more real. Okay, and some of them, I mean, the COVID disruption has kind of made some of this really sit up and and look in your face. I think that's one trend that's playing out. The other thing that's playing out is in delivery models, right? I think what COVID has done, and this entire period around lockdown, restricted travel, has actually innovated on how we run many of our programs. Okay, so so most of our large scale either growth or operations transformations would earlier have required people to have spent a substantial time on site, right? And then, I mean, the site could be a market, the site could be a plant, the site could be an international market, whatever that is, right? But I think what COVID has taught us to innovate is actually being able to run a lot of this, and for most part of it remotely, right? And there are substantial upsides to it as well, right? I mean, people aren't having to travel, people aren't having to take that many flights, okay? People aren't having to, people are spending much more time with their family. So I think there is a positive upside in this whole disruption on the way, engagements and transformations are delivered.
I think Divyendu has dropped out, but I was going through the questions which the students have entered, and I would like to ask one question: is that what can students do at ISB which makes them much more attractive for people to get into consulting companies in the campus recruitments? So what kind of subjects, what kind of activities would make students more attractive in campus placements for consulting organizations?
I think maybe I can start there, and the others can add. I mean, first of all, the fact that you are or an MBA candidate is from ISB, actually itself makes him or her sort of an extremely attractive or a strong candidate for any consulting job, right? I mean, purely because of the strong reputation of the school and all the education system and the mentorship there, right? So I think that's one. But I think just getting into a bit more specifics, right? First of all, so our hiring from ISB has been totally independent of what courses you take, what electives you take, like what majors, minors you do. So that's, it's completely agnostic of that, right? So, I mean, what we of course look for is, that you have done well in whatever you have done or whatever you have chosen to actually do, right? So, there isn't any secret sauce of a combination of courses or majors that would, sort of actually matter. And facts are there for us to, sort of also see and analyze, right? So I think that's one. Two is, as I said, right? I mean, what we do look for, are leaders, interesting personalities, people who actually we feel are one amongst us, and who our clients will actually feel inspired by working with, right? So as I said earlier, just try and make the full opportunity full use of all the opportunities which the campus will have to offer in terms of, there are just so many things which happen, right? I mean, so many events which happen. You have like global leaders coming to campus, interacting with them, actually being a part of some clubs and, like doing well there, taking up some opportunities to actually demonstrating your entrepreneurship and making change happen, right? So, do embrace yourself, do embrace some of these opportunities which the campus has to offer. I know, there is always a hidden sort of a question under these questions, right? On how important grades are, right? So, and in fact, again, I've been to ISB campus multiple times and I've shared with facts and figures, yes, while having strong academics and strong grades helps, of course, because it's not so much about the grades. It's more about your dedication, passion, and again, doing well in something that you have chosen to actually do well in, right? So it's more of an indicator of that. But I think, if you look at some of our shortlisting figures, we've always had, I think more than 30 to 40% of people in our shortlist who are absolutely outside of any dean's list or whatever is the academic thing, right? So, I think 50-60% are from in, and around 30-40% are out, right? So that's a fact. And then once you are in the interview process, I think then nobody actually goes back and looks at your grades or whatever, right? Then it is about how well do you do in those interviews, as and when you interact with the McKinsey partners and some of the other colleagues, right? So I think and on that point in ISB, I've seen students do invest a lot in preparing for consulting interviews. In fact, you also have a lot of consulting firms, including McKinsey, being at the forefront, where there is so much of coaching and mentorship that's provided. You will actually have McKinsey alums and some of the other consulting alums as well who are on campus. I mean, around the recruiting season, almost every week to have like in-person, one-on-one, coaching sessions, workshops, case prep workshops, CV workshops, right? So it's very important to actually be actually well prepared in those interviews. And I think, I mean, that's of course a journey which, most students who are keen on consulting undertake, I think around 2 months or so before the interviews actually start. So I think that's critical because, at the end of the day, all the evaluation is all crunched down to that interview date, right? So it's important for you to come across as being somebody who's prepared and has done well in those interviews. So I think that's something which is, that's quite important.
Thanks, Vivek. That was a lot of good tips, getting people actually oriented in that direction. So Vineet, an associated question would be like, when you didn't make the shortlist or McKinsey shortlist while at ISB, then how did you take it forward? You mentioned that your experience and your wife all played a role, but you had to also get into that mental groove that I still want to get to McKinsey, and this is the way. One opportunity may have been lost, but I again will be in the running.
Yeah, it's so look, I think there's part of it is serendipity, as Vikram said, right? And again, this is a little bit to do with the way I try not to take life too seriously, right? So I sort of try to dampen the disappointment and excitement both of some of these sort of life-changing events, I would say. But leaving that aside, I think it was very easy to sort of get back in the groove, right? Because the quality of the work that living vicariously through my wife, I could see that the firm was doing. It was sort of very easy to get excited with the opportunity to be part of that set of people. And again, personally for me, it's always about the day-to-day, right? Who are you sort of dealing with and speaking to and learning from and sharing your own learnings with. And I suspect there are very few other places where you get such a high concentration of incredibly sort of talented people who are going to continue to push you to be a better version of yourself. So I think that it was quite easy to get back in the groove. I think it took a little bit of time to sort of dust off the laziness and the inertia and sort of get into the case prep groove and so on. And the firm helps, right? Because they will assign a buddy or a mentor, or I don't know, whatever different offices have a different nomenclature, but there will be someone who is assigned to you, and he or she will sort of help you through that preparation. and that helps a lot, because then you see a little bit of what you would expect in the interviews, and then it's about being in the flow on the day, right? So which is just a few thoughts on that.
Sure. Thanks, Vineet. So a lot of questions have come admissions related, how do I apply to the YLP program, whether that is going to the type of background I need to project, the type of whether I need to take the GMAT now. So all of that will be taken up by the admissions team. So don't think that your questions won't be responded to. So Amit, who is leading the YLP program, he will get back to you. He will also right now do a survey so that we know that who of you are planning to apply by the 28th of March, that is this year. Since the deadline is coming up, so and he will get in touch with you and take those admissions Q&A. But having said that, so we'll continue with a couple of more questions. So Sudipto, what would you say are the attributes of being a good consultant, whether at McKinsey and if you were there somewhere else too? What would you say? What are the attributes one needs to look at or develop or makes you successful?
No, I think that's a tough one. Okay, and I think the interesting part is that you'll have a wide variety of them. Okay, and if you look around, if you look at many of my colleagues, okay, I wouldn't say that there is a certain archetype, Divyendu, of things that they are good at, and because of which they've kind of succeeded and done well in consulting, right? I think the primary thing is that really matters, and really matters is, do you enjoy getting your hands dirty, right? And and making a shift in organizations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you enjoy getting your hands dirty, making a shift in organizations, right, and a lot of other things will come together, but that's eventually and effectively what you do, right? At least what we do in McKinsey, that primarily centers around that, right? Now, there are a few things that that I think help in that regard. One is an ability to, just connecting with people, engaging with them, to really understand, frankly, what matters most. Okay. Right. You can call it consumer insights. You can call it, understanding what companies really want. Okay. But the fact is, just connecting with people, even at an emotional level, right, to really understand what is it that matters to them, where are they looking at growing. I think is one trait that we can do that that helps. Okay.
Sure.
I think the second is being comfortable with ambiguity, right? I think as Vivek and Vineet mentioned, right, that that you never not every time is it very clear to you as to what are you really doing, right? You may start out on one journey on a certain path, but over the over the transformation or over the project that you're leading, right, you may end up somewhere else, right? The course, the destination may be different. So I think just being comfortable with ambiguity, right, and is I would say is helpful. I think the third is being abreast of how the world is changing around you and being adaptive to that, right? The recipe of what it takes to transform a company or a business, the way it was 20 years back, the way it was 10 years back, is very different from the way it is today, and will be very different from the way it is the next 5 years, right? So being tuned into what's happening in the external world, right, being abreast of the latest of the trends and imbibing those, I think is helpful, right?
Sure. Thanks, Sudip. In fact, I remember on a year or so back, I had this discussion with Kedar, again, the chairman of Unilever Bangladesh now. So he was telling the way Unilever is valuing more and more people who can live with uncertainty, who are more resilient, and then also the focus on teamwork. So the softer skills have taken over from the hard skills or analytical skills, if I may say so. So it's across industries that we are witnessing this. Finally, so that was a lot of rich insights all of you shared, and I hope that the attendees gain from those insights. Now, the final question that I would like to pose to each of you, and so this time I'll go in the reverse order. We'll start with Vivek. What is that advice you want to leave from an alum to a potential future alum? What is the advice you want to leave the audience with? Because we'll also be sharing this video with many more prospects, so people who couldn't join in for whatever reason. So what is that advice you would like to leave them with?
I think the advice which I typically give to actually friends and aspiring sort of professionals, I mean, at the stage where most of the applicants are, right? I would say, like, I mean, guys, I mean, this is the time of your life, I mean, when you have so many opportunities that you have in front of you, right? I mean, because as you grow older, as more and more responsibilities pile on, of course you have you have opportunities then as well. But I think, I mean, at this point of time, this is the time of your life, where you can, as they say, like, follow your heart, follow your passion, do what you are more passionate about. I mean, feel free to make mistakes, learn from them. That only makes you a stronger and a better individual, right? So I would just say that, I mean, you do what you really feel passionate about. Of course, as you do, I mean, speak to people who you trust, who you value, all the information that you get from information session like these, right? Process them, and then based on that, make your own decision. So that's one. Two, I would say, sort of in this new day and age, and the new way of working, where all the global geographical boundaries, have come crashing down. You can be anywhere and, do anything, work with anybody, just like broaden your horizon. Don't feel constrained about the fact that, hey, I'm in so and so geography, how do I this or that, right? Just, I mean, these days everything is accessible, so feel free to be bold in your choices. I think that's what I would the advice that I would give to this gang right now.
Okay, thanks, Vivek. You heard from already. Vivek is a partner at McKinsey, and he's aspiring. And in the next few years, possibly when we are inviting him to the platform, I'm sure he will be global leader leading companies which are making impact worldwide. So you heard from him. Now we'll move on to Vineet. So Vineet, one is the professional part, but also we would like to hear from you. So every year ISB also is famous for, some student or the other meeting their partners on campus. So is there some advice there too?
I
for
would
everybody,
say
all years now.
Yeah, so I wrote down the advice I was going to give, and now I realize that it applies to both, actually, right?
Okay.
So I had two pieces of advice. I think one is stop looking for a formula. There isn't any, right? So there is no formula to getting the dream job or to whatever, and for that matter, to getting your life partner. And the second is stay optimistic, because that is very important. There will be setbacks, but stay optimistic.
Great insights there. See, I can see that, Vineet, every statement that you make, there is that philosophical touch, that wisdom is very evident. So some of it we have gained through this being in this COVID lockdown in the last 1 year or so, but I guess throughout your career you have done that.
No, I'm glad you find it useful.
Yeah.
It's just speaking from experience, that's all.
Right. Thanks, Vineet. So then we will move on to Shudipto, our Provashi Bangali in our team. So
yeah, so see, I think as you have the next couple of years, right? My suggestion would be to really do what you enjoy. Okay, trying to script out something which which is based on what others have done really works. Okay, so talk to as many people as you can. Hear from them. hear from their experiences, hear what's worked, hear what's not worked, right? If you get the opportunity of going to campus, please do. I think that's, that's a phenomenal experience, right? You get to see that. By the way, one of the things that was instrumental in me, joining ISB was I decided to visit campus. Okay, and interestingly, when I visited campus, I realized that I found, one of my batchmates was also was part of the academia out there, right? And it was a great chat. So you don't know what you discover. So have as many conversations, hear from people, learn, but eventually do what gives you joy, what gives you satisfaction, what gives you energy, because that is what will really sustain you, right? Going forward. Okay. So I think that's my simple one suggestion, right? And I think the other part would be that there will be times when you think the world is ending, okay, that your options have all kind of blocked off, right? There's doomsday around, but trust me, that never really happens. Okay, so just keep your chin up, okay, and and there will always be the next day that you will live to fight.
That was inspiring, Sudip. I must say that. Love what you do what you love, and there's always next day. So yeah. So finally, we move back to Vikram.
Yeah, no, I think I have three things, to the folks on the call. I think one, I think hard work and discipline trumps intelligence. Right? If I reflect back last almost 21 years of my career, the people who have made it were not the guys who were first in the class or second in the class or top 10%. People who made it, the differentiator was hard work, discipline, and probably resilience. Right? So don't be demotivated if you are, oh shit, I got 5 marks extra less in this paper, or I did not get into ISB, or I did not get into, I think hard work, discipline, and resilience trumps intelligence. Second, I think no matter what, never compromise on your integrity, right? Nothing is worth a peaceful night's sleep, right? Shortcuts, are sometimes very irresistible, but I think in medium, short, long term, whatever you take, I think it's never worth it. Never worth it, right? And the last advice I will give is read a lot of different things, right? I think it's amazing how much edge you can create vis-a-vis others if you were to just have the discipline of reading a lot of these things. And while it's a very commonly available advice, it's hardly adhered to. Right? I think so. Those are my three pieces of advice for the people.
Thanks, Vikram. So thanks to all of you. Those were great pieces of advice, and I'm sure the attendees would have a lot of takeaways. Do reflect on what has been shared with you. I'm sure you all are in the early stages of career. If you are aspiring to come to ISB, again, as Vikram mentioned, that hard work, discipline, resilience, all are critically important. Our next YLP deadline is coming up on the 28th March. You need to submit your application on time. Many a time people miss out on the deadlines, and they keep on sending requests that can you extend the deadline? No, that's the first sign of showing that you are committed to the cause. So that's something we always value, and we can't be extending that. So just keep that. Amit will be helping you. In fact, he has already on the chat box shared the login link, so you can get started over there. And finally, a great night of learning and insight sharing. So thanks to all of our alums. I always say, our alumni, our pride. That's the tagline of our Office of Alumni Engagement. That ISB could come to the top in such a short time, thanks to all of you committed alums who always ensure that that our school keeps on scaling newer heights. We are already in the top 25, and now with the leadership transition going on, we are focused on how we can move further up. So, and you all yourselves are the best brand ambassadors. Finally, for the attendees, I will leave with a quote from Steve Jobs already, Shudipto touched upon it, but I'll just quote from there that the only way to do great work is to love what you do. So if you find your solace in consulting, see what will make you successful there with ISB or without ISB, but ultimately it's your life and you have to make choices and you have to carry out those choices. So on that note, thanks everyone for attending this evening. And one final promise that Vivek had made early on, that Vivek, what's the final score that's now? Is India
I'm sure there are so many more who are watching live, but yeah, England is 142 for 4 at the end of 17 overs. It's going to be a tough one. So let's hope for the best.
For five.
Okay.
For 5, really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Okay.
So I think clearly my streaming is a bit behind. Heavy.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it's 5
Great.
now.
Thank
Yes,
you.
5. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Good night, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.